Gender has caused issues in sport, whether it be from unequal pay to stereotypes for male and female athletes. Recently, at the Cricket World Cup, controversy was sparked when the men's team were flown in the comfort of first class, but the women's team were left in economy. This shows the lack of funding that there is in female sport. However, there are also many issues that affect male athletes, such as Justin Fashanu, who tragically committed suicide after receiving abuse for being a black and openly gay football player. But why has gender affected how we see, watch and talk about sport? Gender inequality and stereotypes were first seen during the Olympic Games in Greece in 776 BCE, and it has paved the way in how men and women are seen in sport, even though this is starting to change. The ancient Greek Olympics were where the modern Olympics that we see now came from, but a massive difference, except for little sports being available, was that the only athletes that were allowed to compete were men, and married women weren't even allowed to watch, and if they were caught trying to watch, they would be thrown off a mountain as a punishment. This embedded a message into people's brains for years that sport was made for men, as women weren't allowed to compete in sport until the 1900 Olympics in Paris, where 2.2% of athletes were women, and if they won, they received a porcelain bowl instead of a medal, compared to in the 2016 Olympics in Rio, where 45% of athletes were women. The way that sport first started paved the way to how it is looked at today, and the rate of women participating in sport, with there being one female footballer player to 13 male players. Gender equality in sport has dramatically improved in many ways, such as increase in participation from girls and boys participating in sport that are perceived as for girls. There are still many big differences in pay, coverage and viewing figures. Gender differences and inequality in sport is caused by many different things, including stereotypes, parents and socialisation, physical education at school and socialisation, opportunities and salaries. A stereotype is known as an overgeneralised belief where people are believed to act a certain way or do certain things based on the way that they look, their gender, their age or their background. In sport there are stereotypes for both genders, which people believe they have to uphold. To put it, may also limit people as they don't want to be perceived in a certain way due to what the stereotype says. For example, boys are less likely to participate in sports such as ballet or gymnastics, as there is a stereotype that boys that take part in these sports are gay or not very masculine. And on the other side, girls are less likely to take part in football as they don't want to be perceived gay or manly. This has heavily impacted on participation in different sports for men and women, making disparities in gender. Parents and socialisation are another factor that created gender difference in sport. Parents typically bring up girls and boys in very different ways. When girls are brought up, they are normally brought up playing with dolls and participating in sports such as ballet. However, boys' parents are more likely going to let them take part in sports such as football. These small ways that children are brought up have been another main problem for the difference that gender is seen in sport. Now, as being young and impressionable, it turns into a never-ending cycle where children brought up this way then bring their children up this way, creating a cycle in society. There is also socialisation and physical activity in schools, where many boys and girls don't participate in the same sports as boys are likely to do football, and girls netball, and instead of children being grouped by their skill level, they are grouped by their gender, which ultimately affects participation and role models, as there are less female role models in sport, such as football, as they haven't been brought up to play these sports, which then limits the amount of participation in the future, as they aren't able to see female role models in the media that are like them. There are also disparities in the opportunities that are available, particularly for female players, as the media shows a lot less coverage on women's sport. It isn't seen necessary to give them more opportunities, as the media believes that very few people would be interested in it. As well as having less opportunities, women also have drastically low salaries compared to their male counterparts, as Wayne Rooney was paid a massive £300,000 a week, but Steph Houghton, the captain for Manchester City, is paid £35,000 per year, and she's one of the top paid players. The reason why there are less people that watch female sports is because typically the games are at a low level, as many female sports female performers have to have other jobs outside of their professional sport job, as they don't make enough money just from playing sport, meaning that they aren't able to train as much, ultimately affecting the level that they play at. Change is occurring in football, with increasing coverage of female football events, but there is still a long way to go. A massive way that can change gender inequality in sport is increasing the amount of positive female role models by also increasing the amount of female football on TV. This will help normalise female sport, making the future of female football grow, with more young girls participating in football. However, positive change is that there has been improvements in the gender pay gap, where at Lewes Football Club the same funding has gone into the male and female teams. However, sometimes the equal pay can be controversial, as in tennis, Grand Slam tournaments, women and men receive the same prize money. However, this has sparked debates as male players play 5 sets and can be playing for over 5 hours, whereas a woman player may play 3 sets and can sometimes finish the match after less than 2 hours, which has made it questionable whether this is fair for the male players. However, in general, the gender difference in sport is increasingly getting better, and female and male players are very much viewed the same way.